Mark in Portland, you're on the air with Chris Hedges.
Hi there, Chris and Thom. My question, I just heard a report, something to the effect, basically, quote, companies may now be ready to hire, and they are optimistic about growth. And my question for Chris is, though there's, maybe no direct coordination or anything between these corporations, do you see them fostering this job hiring in kind of as a to validate the right after this last election? I mean, do you ever see them?
You see a conspiracy between the business community and the Republican Party to make the Republicans look good post-election? Is that essentially it?
Yeah. And I don't believe in conspiracy theories. I just believe there's opportunities that people take advantage of.
Sure.
Well, I mean, let's be very clear that we have sort of Potemkin statistics, like we can just take unemployment as a good example. Reagan included Air Force, Marine, Navy, Army service personnel to reduce unemployment by 2%. Clinton removed 5 million people from the unemployment rolls because they stopped looking for work. If you count people who have part-time jobs, most people at Walmart work about 28 hours a week, with their wages putting them still below the poverty line. When you throw all those people in, as the Los Angeles Times pointed out a few weeks ago, our unemployment rate is not 10%, but somewhere between 17 and 20%. That's a sixth of the American workforce. And with 21 million unemployed, most of those people long-term unemployed, it's pretty clear that those jobs are not coming back. The destruction of our manufacturing base has been catastrophic. But
it's been the result of very specific trade policies.
Yes, it has.
Which could be changed even without an act of Congress. I mean, George Bush backed us out of, was it the ABM treaty? It was one of the treaties with Russia that had to do with missiles and nukes, simply by unsigning it.
Yeah. And
President Obama could do the same thing with GATT, NAFTA, all of these things, and boom, just like that, go back to the same tariffs that we had in 1980, the day Reagan came into office, which was an average of 20%, 21% tariffs in the United States, and that would rebalance that playing field, as it were, and you would see American factories coming back to life the next week.
Well, that is what has to happen.
And he campaigned on that, by the way.
Yeah, that's what has to happen. We have to re-enfranchise a dispossessed working class back into the economy. And if we don't do that, our democracy is doomed. That really is the engine that will save us.
I absolutely agree. And to take it even a step further, in Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith talked about how real wealth in a nation is only produced by two things: the application of labor to natural resources. In other words, making things.
Right.
The example was a stick on the ground, and when it's carved, it has no intrinsic value, although it may have some natural value. But when it's carved into an axe handle, it has value that might last several generations. And so the more we make things, the wealthier we become as a society. And since we stopped making things, we have become impoverished. Since, Reaganomics and Clintonomics have destroyed this country and hollowed it out. I'm explicitly calling for, a reversal of all these insane trade policies. In the context of your new book, Death of the Liberal Class, Chris Hedges, I find, interestingly, a surprising number of people in the liberal class agreeing with that position but afraid to talk about it out loud, particularly politicians who won't come on our program but say, oh, yeah, I'm with you, but I won't talk about it. And an astounding number of Tea Party members, and even a couple of the leaders of the Tea Party, not the official front group guys, but the people who've kind of risen up through the ranks. Had Mark Williams on our TV show last night, the former president of Tea Party Express. He's like, totally with you. And all of my guys are. So maybe there's some hope.
Well, there is. I think the populace has woken up, including people who had invested a lot of hope in Barack Obama. The problem is the mechanisms of government are so corrupted that the needs and concerns of citizens are irrelevant. We saw it with the so-called health care reform bill. None of the bailouts or stimulus packages were supported across the political spectrum. I remember that first bailout, $700 billion, constituent calls left to right were 100-1 against it, impassioned speeches by...
Well, it's because of right-wing talk radio.
House Democrats, and it passes anyway. Yeah. FISA Reform Act.
Oh, you're talking about the bank bill.
I'm talking about the first bank bailout, which was opposed by everybody.
Right.
And so I think that we have to swallow the very hard reality that the corporate state is so entrenched, and the political class is essentially function as courtiers, hedonists of power, including Obama, that while the citizenry wakes up and while the citizenry begins to understand, the demands and needs of the citizenry are not addressed by the corporate leviathan that controls power. And
we've been there before. We were there in the Harding and Harding, Coolidge, and Hoover administration.
With the difference that by the turn of the century or the early 20th century, we had very powerful progressive and socialist movements that on the eve of World War I were terrifying the power of.
Can you stick around a little?
Yeah.
A little longer? It's very rare that I have an opportunity to really dig into topics with a guest, beyond just the surface sparring. And I'm finding it fascinating. I hope you are as well. And I hope you are as well, Chris. Chris Hedges with us. His book, Death of the Liberal Class. Stick around. We'll be right back. David in Keene, New Hampshire. David, thank you for listening or watching. Chris Hedges, you are on the air with Chris. David? David in Keene? Okay, no David. Let's go to Todd in Miami, Florida. Hey, Todd, you're on the air with Chris Hedges.
Hi, gentlemen. I was reading in yesterday's New York Times, or might have been this morning, about mini flash crashes. We had the big flash crash in May, and now they're still experiencing them. And I got to wondering myself, if I walk into a market and pick up an apple that's listed at 30 cents, by the time I walk to the cash register to pay for the apple and leave, it's still 30 cents. But stock prices in that time can change so rapidly depending on the volume of selling. What would really hurt if the stock market was only open one day a week and, the prices were what the prices are and everybody has one full day to make trades at today's stock price, and if you don't like it, come back next week?
Chris, your thoughts?
Well, I'd never thought about that. Look, the stock market is gambling. That's all it is. And, like many people, I have like a small retirement account, and I got a call the other day, and they said, well, here's a really great investment. You bet that the euro and the Mexican peso will rise against the dollar over a period and 16% return. That's not investment. It's betting, and that's all we're doing.
Yeah.
And societies that attempt to produce wealth through gambling, through a bubble economy, through casino capitalism, do crash. And I read that article, it was in today's New York Times, and it's fascinating because it is a kind of, this was about a stock price that in a matter of seconds dropped 90%. I think it is a sign as to how volatile and fragile this system is and how quickly it could collapse.
Well, it's because since '99, with the end of Glass-Steagall, when the Gramm-Leach-Bliley was passed, the banks could do what they call proprietary trading. They could gamble in the back room with their investors' money, and they're doing it.
Right.
And they're doing it now with computers that can process 1,000 transactions a second.
Right.
And so they make money on mils rather than pennies.
Right.
And I think the solution is to go back to what we had from 1935 until 1964, which was the securities transaction excise tax.
Well, I think we should go back to the 17th century in Europe when speculators were hung.
Yeah. Remember Lincoln's famous quote about that, about the gold speculators?
No.
He said, I would like to see all these gold speculators taken out and shot.
Right.
And so I use it as an epigraph or a chapter in one of my books. Lincoln was very, very unhappy with what was being done with gold.